they say they try to regulate, they can't stand that some choose to always have that choice. So if the blame falls on the gun of all your slayers, then who takes the fall? Yeah, yes, the lawyers, they say let's ban them all. Ooh, they say let's ban them all. So if the blame falls on the gun of all your slayers, then who takes the fall? And yes, the lawyers, they say let's ban them all. Yeah, so now slayers, they won't take the fall. And poor lawyers, they'll try to save us all. Ooh, they'll try to save us all. They'll try to save us all. No good can come from this. They'll try to save us all.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Rock Pal Report live on YouTube. And I gotta tell you, it's hilarious, all the hubbub of like, let's go live and talk about the NFL schedule release. Oh wait, every team's PR department had a loaded tweet at 8 o'clock. Now it's out there in the ether. Chris, do you think you could accurately make up, like, I guess the question is, what's the appeal of doing a live stream about a thing that everyone can go read within 30 seconds and then decide whether or not they give a shit?
Well, we did that last year.
Yeah.
That's for a fact.
And how did that go?
Still no one listens to us. It's been 10 years. No one likes us.
10 years. Nobody. Hey, the people who like us love us. That's the difference. Guys, I'm your host, Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. In studio with us tonight, the esteemed Dr. Kyle Trimble, riding shotgun this evening, because unlike sitting around and pandering to a group of people who care that much about the NFL schedule, we're going to do something I think is slightly more productive, and we're going to talk about the health of the Buffalo Bills roster ahead of OTAs. I'm looking at the comments. I'm disappointed in the Bills. No scheduled promo video. It is interesting. I'm looking on social media, and like most teams seem to have tweeted the schedule out. The Chargers PR department put out their 2025 opponents as Pop-Tarts. And so, like, at least they put some effort into giving this some entertainment value. There's a Dak Prescott week 1 next to Frosted the Sun. Like, I don't know what that means.
Never had those ones.
That's not funny. The Houston Texans as Frosted Beef Jerky Pop-Tarts. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. It's not funny.
No, that doesn't make any sense here.
But at least they tried to be interesting.
See, I like when the Bills did that when, you know, they had Josh Allen playing, was Andy from Parks and Rec in the pit. That was probably the best one. I wish they'd do something like that again. I was looking forward to something like that.
In fact, in the pit might not ever be more relevant than it is right now.
Yes.
Because the pit is a real thing that our fan base would react to. Spin thinks he's found something. He's gone off to find it. And if he brings it back, drop it in the chat. If not, who cares? That's why we're here. Ryan Tong and Drew decided to show up. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm just a shade removed from sounding like a prepubescent boy because I got so sick last week, like the type of sickness where you cough and your whole upper body just goes up like 10 degrees. I lost my voice completely. Now, everybody else in my life was thrilled about that except for you sickos who actually give a shit what I show up here to talk about. So, first of all, thank you for coming back, even though I did take a hiatus for a week.
Well, how about this? Let's get it out of the way right now. Next week, also a hiatus. Drew going to Mexico to find his real dad.
Oh my God.
Now, I'm not lying. I'm not lying. He is going. Drew's going to Mexico.
I will be in
But
Mexico.
His dad probably won't be there.
The man is elusive, I can tell you that.
Just like every other time in your life.
See, this is what I love about a podcast like this, where guys can get together, have some drinks, and just bust balls. Guys, this is what it should be. And if sports talk can't be that, why do I care? I want to start off tonight's show. We're obviously here to talk about pre-training camp health. Obviously, obesity is a health issue. So I want to start with this. The Big Tree Inn is really helping to do its part to promote better health in the greater Buffalo and Erie County area by raising the prices of its chicken wings to $22 for a single order of wings.
That's where that place was at. I saw it online, Maniac. That was where it was at? Come on.
22. Now I want to preface this, but Chris, maybe you can find it. In the latest Buffalo chicken wing rankings that exist in Western New York, whether it's Pat Moran's or whether it's, Chris, just Google Buffalo chicken wing rankings. It doesn't matter where it comes from. The Big Tree Inn is a bar that Bills fans understand. We know it. We're familiar with it. But it's more synonymous with the players who went there and the parties that used to be held there. And the Bills tie-in being right down the street from the stadium and kind of on the doorstep of the property, and just the nostalgia of the 90s than it is for the fact that they have great chicken wings, right? So with that being said, the fact that this bar is trying to cash in on the perceived nostalgia value of their food.
Is this Big Tree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm searching through.
There you go.
Pat
Tier 5 there. Or no, tier 3.
Okay, that's Pat Moran's
Yeah.
summer fall 2022 rankings.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Big Tree Inn, and this is pre-Sunny Reds, which means they've been knocked down another peg.
Okay.
I want to say this. Trying to cash in on the nostalgia of Bills fans with mediocre chicken wings and telling me that because you threw some Bills shit up on the walls and Marv Levy had a cup of tea here once, I'm supposed to give you $22 for 10 chicken wings?
No, that's
It's
not.
insanity.
And I saw Will Center. That's out near my house. They're a good chicken wing, but I'm not paying $22 for that chicken wing if that's on the same tier as Big Tree Inn.
That's it. It's insanity to me, especially when I look at a place like Sunny Reds, 4 minutes from my front door. Admittedly,
Fantastic.
they are on the same, like, to me, they have more perceived value because they're closer to me than Bar Bill, and I don't have to drive to East Aurora to get them. They're charging $16 for a single order of wings. Where the fuck do you get off with $22?
16 is too expensive. I understand inflation and just the cost of everything going up, but $22 for 16. Yeah, I'm driving to East Aurora to get a better wing for a cheaper price. It might even out because of gas, but still, the drive is nice going to East Aurora.
Oh, spin in the comments. Bills did do a promo video. They had Allen Iverson do the schedule. All right, this might be worth tuning in for. I'll watch that. Otherwise, I'll just go find the tweet and I'll analyze the schedule on my own time. Or maybe immediately after we get done recording this. I don't know. Maybe we might drop something else tomorrow. With that said, I see Joe Miller in the comments. Joe Miller has met Mr. Drew's dad. This is true. It did happen in an airport. And Joe, your ears might have been burning. Our pre-recorded session, I did reference you in skinny jeans. You're going to have to wait for it to drop, but it's a gem. With that said, right, I think it's offensive, but hey, they're doing their part to make sure that this crop of Bills players stays healthy, because even millionaires are going to look at $22 chicken wings and go, nah, right? Like you'd have to.
Yeah.
If you go, wait a minute, mediocre chicken wings for how much? Nah. As the kids say, miss me with that? Just can't do it. Just can't do it. So guys, with that in mind, I want to talk about the health of the Bills ahead of OTAs this year. There have been some, a house explodes and Joe had to go to Florida.
Up one.
Oh, Oliver. Yeah, Oliver, who stayed up late over there in England to watch this, says, me and my dad were talking today about whether or not the Bills have a good medical staff. We have the guy who can speak to some of this. First of all, when you take a look, Chris, if you want to go up and give me the Buffalo Bills Our Lads, let's take a look at the roster as a whole. When you think about where the Bills are entering the offseason cycle from, they're not a team with a ton of significant injuries.
No, not like in previous seasons.
In previous seasons, you saw the Bills going into the offseason program with guys who had offseason procedures, who had surgery, you had Matt Milanos, who you were like, oh my God, he broke his leg. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, he tore a pec. But we watched Matt Milano come back from that injury and play.
Yes.
At a reasonable level, although he didn't look like much in that Kansas City game.
No, he got better throughout the season, but still, it takes some time, and it was the leg more so than the biceps.
So throw me to the Our Lads again. When you take a look at this, on both the offense and then defense, Chris, if you scroll down, there aren't a ton of players that jump off the map to me as far as, oh my God, I wonder what their offseason rehab has been like. Except for one who seems to have incensed our fan base. We're obsessed with this idea, at least we were for a week, and it annoyed the hell out of me. I have a real problem with all of the Dalton Kincaid conversation. I have a real issue with it. I think that a lot of it's disingenuous, and I think a lot of what's being talked about is being discussed by people who don't actually understand NFL caliber rehab.
Nope.
Who don't understand NFL caliber physicality and size, and ultimately who don't understand the injuries themselves. So with that said, I thought it would be a good idea to bring you in, and let's kind of cut through some of the fat and get to the meat of the issue. Dalton Kincaid suffered what's now known as two separate knee issues.
Correct. Yep.
Correct?
Yep. A right knee and a left knee.
So both of his knees were injured. How many procedures do you believe he needed in summation?
I believe he only needed the one, because we saw that he was golfing in February with several other Bills players, and he had a sleeve on his right leg. Keep in mind, he injured his left knee, suffered the PCL sprain in the left knee against the Colts. So he's played on two bad knees. And that right knee injury, I'm pretty sure predated the left kney. So he was on the injury report prior. I don't know what it was. And then he suffered the left knee injury. And then we knew both knees were injured when Dawson Knox talked about that during the locker cleanouts. So we have seen Dalton with a sleeve on his right knee during workouts. And we've seen his left knee intermittently taped up. But he's been moving around well since then, and that's where it kind of leads to our discussion where, he's skinny and everything else with that.
And so the way people attacked this, like a conversation got taken seriously on our local radio station, which has come under fire recently for entertaining dubious conversation or conversation of dubious value.
Multiple dubious conversations.
So it was hilarious to hear them, turn on the radio and hear the morning show, Jeremy White and Joe DiBiase talking about the idea that a caller gave them a good idea, which you already know is awful. There is no such thing as a caller who has ever had a good idea, myself included.
I was about to say, you've called in. When has there ever been a good idea?
I'm a horse's ass. They allowed me on the air, and all it was a conduit for me to show everyone how stupid I was. So with that said, when's the last time you ever heard someone say, Chris, you know who gave me a great idea for this broadcast of ours? Some random person that we've never heard of and doesn't know how to speak publicly. That seems like a good idea, right?
Yeah, Oliver over in England.
But so with that in mind, they brought up the idea that, I saw the thing and, Dalton Kincaid looks small. He looks small and he looks frail, and he just doesn't look like he needs to look to be an NFL tight end. And so then at first I'm like, that's a hilariously stupid idea when you think about this conversation and who Dalton Kincaid is as an athlete. And the hosts entertained it, and then it went to social media. I think they themselves tweeted it out.
I think it was the other way around. I think somebody else tweeted it out, and then it got picked up by that. But either way, it was still just ridiculous in general.
So the idea that you're going to question whether or not Dalton Kincaid is built for the NFL game, quote unquote, because he looks frail. Chris, I want to address this. I think graphically is the best way to do this. So I've given you some photos. If you want to throw them up there on the screen for people, because I want to talk about some people who were super jacked, super physical tight end specimens. If you want to start off with I don't know, Chris, what do we got here? We've got Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst.
I don't have that one up. The other one's up.
Okay. So Darnell Washington and Cole Kmet. Darnell Washington was drafted in the same year that Dalton Kincaid was drafted. And there was a contingent of Bills fans who saw him play at Georgia and said, oh my God, I want this giant athletic freak at tight end. And then he fell all the way to the third round of the same draft that Dalton Kincaid was taken in. And he has done next to nothing in his pro career. Do you know that he has, if you look at this, in terms of, look at this, defensive interceptions, fumbles, tackles.
You're on the wrong one, dude. That's Darnell Washington.
Darnell.
I'm like, why are we talking about defense? We're talking about tight ends.
Darnell Washington is a player who has almost no offensive contributions to the Steelers. When you look at him statistically, he's been used as an inline blocker, but
which is needed in today's game.
But all of the fears about that size and he's a great athlete. And then you saw his RAS score and you go, man, he's actually a subpar athlete for being that big. He's managed 10 targets in his rookie season and 25 in his sophomore season. He has, in 2 seasons, 26 catches for 261 yards.
I'm shocked. Look at these stats, how poor they are. Like, I understand blocking tight end, like, Quentin Morris didn't have amazing stats, but, like, I would expect you to be using your tight end more than that.
If I go to Pro Football Reference and I look up Quentin Morris's stats, do you think he has better or worse than Darnell Washington?
Better. He's a better athlete.
He had 146 and 15 receptions. So 5 receptions shy of the guy we thought was a better pick simply because he was jacked.
UDFA.
Yeah, simply because he was jacked, 6'7", 264. He was at the max end of the spectrum for size for a tight end. He's done fuck all. You look at Cole Kmet, a guy who was drafted in the top half of the second round, kind of close to where, once you get into the back half, 20 to 40 is a dice roll in terms of your teams that are just kind of taking a need and saying, I'll take that player because I need that position, because they're probably good football teams.
Yes.
The Bears, who were a bad football team, used their earliest pick in the second round to take a tight end that they thought was going to be great because Cole Kmet, if I type this in here and it gives me his size, you think about what he's been in the NFL. It's been he's been consistent in terms of games played. His output is relatively mediocre. I mean, I guess he had one good season where he had 700 yards.
Yeah, he had Justin Fields thrown to him.
Yeah. So,
but he's not good, right?
He's got potential.
Yeah.
But again, you're talking about a guy who, when you see him, he looks jacked. He's 6'6", 260. And you go, oh my God, I need that guy as a tight end. He's really done nothing special in the NFL. Then you've got another pair of guys here, Chris. We want to throw them on. Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst might even be more this way because they were both first-round draft picks. These weren't even guys that got taken like later as afterthoughts by GMs. These were guys who were viewed as so talented and so physical they could not fail at the NFL level and thus had to be taken in the first round.
Kyle Pitts looks like
Look at how jacked these guys are.
Kyle Pitts looks like he's in a Ludacris video.
Look at Hayden Hurst.
Welcome to Atlanta, where the players play.
Hayden Hurst.
We ride on them things every day.
Oh, no. So
big beats hit streets, see gangsters roaming.
Are you just going to do spoken word rap? Because that might be actually funnier than anything I do tonight.
You're way too white to know all those lyrics.
So
only silverware I need is a steak knife and a fork.
So you look at Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst looks jacked, doesn't he?
Oh, very much so.
Do you know he's 6'4", 245?
Oh my God, that's the same size as...
Oh my God, that's the same size as Dalton Kincaid. But the internet will tell you that based on some photographs they saw on social media, he's thin and he looks frail. Chris, did you load those photos of Kincaid working out?
From 50 yards away.
Get those loaded up while we vamp. So Hayden Hurst looks like a Greek god with his pecs and his traps, and he's jacked and he's got triceps, and he's the same height and weight as Dalton Kincaid. And yet the same people who see that photo and go, see, that's the kind of tight end the Bills should have drafted. We did. We got the height. We got the weight. We got the makeup. And yet nobody wants to believe it. And yet, for all of you who are like, oh, he looks frail, here's Dalton Kincaid bench pressing more than every single one of you in the chat right now, Here's Dalton Kincaid bench pressing more than most of the people complaining about him on Twitter combined. How much weight is that, Kyle, if you had to estimate?
Well, we got to get the picture up here.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can't. It's
Yeah.
the one with the chains.
Yeah. All right. So the bar is 45, right? And then those are probably at least 45s on the other side. I wouldn't be surprised if that's more. And then there's another 25, and then you got chains on there. So I mean, you're probably looking 175, and he's probably doing supersets. I mean, this is some serious weight at reps. He's not doing maxes. I mean, you know, it could be even close to 200 pounds. I mean, I doing the math quickly there, but you're putting up some serious weight, and I mean, that's not a frail individual.
No. So when you think about it, Chris, like show the other picture where he's doing like overhead presses with what did you estimate that at?
About 115. Yeah. I mean, that's not nothing. That's
overhead press at 115 pounds. Now, I don't know about you guys, but 115 pounds sounds like a lot of weight, doesn't it?
It does. It depends also what you're doing, how you're moving it. 115 on bench isn't much. 115 on squat isn't much, but 115 on biceps is a shit ton of weight. 115 on front press is a lot of weight. I mean, you have to understand what muscles you're working and how much you can really push up.
So with that said, calling this guy frail or trying to paint the idea that at 6'4", 243, he's somehow not physically fit enough to be durable at the NFL level. Now, there are guys who have ligament issues, soft tissue injuries, hip pointers, things that'll continue to occur over the course of their career because something about their genetic makeup just makes them predisposed to that. You can't stop that.
Exactly. And let me add one more thing about Kincaid before we transition here, too. Kincaid, there's never been an issue of him being strong enough to play in the NFL. They're talking about getting his body callous enough to be ready for the rigors of the game. So he can play. It's just, can you keep his body healthy long enough for the duration of the season? And that's where he started breaking down. Now, sometimes you get injuries that stack on top of other injuries and they leave the other problems, but he needs to get better at hardening his body so he can withstand the injury. So it's not saying that he can't play the NFL game. It's can he make sure that he gets his body prepared so he can withstand the season? Because I don't care how tough you are, you're going to struggle to get through the season. I mean, there's some aliens like Josh Allen who play through anything, but generally some guys are going to miss some time or they're not going to be able to get through. But, you know, they saw it with Keon Coleman, they saw that with Dalton Kincaid, they see it with other guys that have to adjust to the pro game because it's a more physical game, it's a longer season, and they just have to be better prepared to take care of their bodies. So whether that's, you know, getting extra care outside the facility or weightlifting so that they can withstand the hits. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that go into that. So just saying somebody's frail is fucking stupid.
It's stupid when he's 6'4", 240 and change. It's funny, like you think about Reed Ferguson. Chris, give me a Goog. What's Reed Ferguson's published height and weight?
I'm going to guess that it's 6'1", 240.
Okay. When you stand
He
next,
would F me up.
when you
he
stand
wouldn't.
next to Reed Ferguson, it's a reminder that you look
Wow, close.
6'1", 235 per hour, lads.
And it's hilarious that when you stand next to him, he's so cut and just athletically built. It's a stiff reminder that this guy plays in the NFL and tackles other people and gets hit for a living, and you feel small next to it.
Yes.
And it's that way with Dalton Kincaid. He's a bigger version of that. So anybody who has the balls to go on Twitter and be like, he's too small, you're an idiot. You should have to go stand next to a couple of these guys for an afternoon and say that over again. Read your tweets out loud in the room with them. Now, one of the things that did get noticed was tape on Dalton Kincaid's knee. I almost wore my rock tape today. I wear on my left shoulder because I have rotator cuff injuries from a lifetime of being fat and trying to be athletic. I have rotator cuff injuries that rock tape helps me not just in the sense of, oh, it's tape and it supports your joint. It also helps because there's proper lifting form when it comes to doing exercises. There's things that you need to remember to do. And it's easier to remember to have proper form when you can feel it, when you feel things pressing on your muscles, almost forcing them into the right place.
A tactile cue.
Yes. So you're familiar with this because of your work as a PT. So when you see tape on Dalton Kincaid's knee, again, there's a contingent of the internet that decided that it was something to be apoplectic about. How do you feel about their usage of that when it comes to his rehab?
A lot of times, a lot of that stuff isn't going to hurt anything. It can maybe help out that 1%, but it's not going to be the reason why he's out there running. It's not the reason why he's able to do everything he needs to, but it might just give you that little extra positive assurance that you can do what you need to do. Like taping up an ankle, sometimes you prefer for stability. Sometimes you need to have that proprioceptive awareness. Say, hey, I have to be mindful of my ankle. With your shoulder, it's good to say, hey, I have to be mindful of my shoulder, and then you're more aware of your positioning with your shoulder when you're pushing up or you're pushing out or whatever you're trying to do with it there. So it's not going to fix another problem. It's not like you put the tape on, suddenly you're throwing 100 miles an hour or benching 250 or anything like that, but you're just more mindful of it. And sometimes that might correct the issues. And then that can also help with a little inflammation, but it certainly can help, but it's not going to be the underlying fix. It's kind of like everybody asks me about, hot or cold for everything. Yeah, it might help out your situation, but it's not going to fix the underlying problem. That's why you do exercises. That's why you do correction. That's why you do different things like that. But it can help, but it's not going to fix the problem. There's a difference between that. And I think people blur that when they're looking at a quick fix, which with a tape, cupping, whatever, hot, cold, whatever it is.
So with that in mind, seeing what you've seen throughout this offseason program and some of the visual cues, the exercises you see him doing and that it's being talked about, what's his perceived upshot for the offseason program leading into camp? Do you think that these are things based on his injury, his recovery timeline from the stuff that he's had worked on? Does it seem like he's on pace to be full go by the time camp rolls around? Or do you still think we'll see him with rock tape? And do you still think they'll be leaning onto some of those?
I think we'll see him full go. So look, going back to like what I said, the right knee, I think he had something done. We probably won't hear about it. They might say, hey, he had scoped, and we talk about that more when we get mandatory mini camp. I wouldn't be surprised if he had scoped because he might have some type of minor meniscal issues, and that happens. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to trim it out rather than repair it. The left knee, the PCL, that's going to be the more concerning thing because that's what we know about. Those can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes even longer, depends on the severity. They rarely require surgery, so we know he didn't have surgery. That would have been reported on. But that should heal up fine. We saw that happen before with Harrison Phillips, and he was fine. We've seen that with other guys. It takes time to do that and get better, but we shouldn't see any problems with that. And the fact that he's doing all the activities during the OTAs, the fact that he's with the Bills doing their stuff, indicates at least he's taking the rehab seriously. He's at least listening to what they're doing and allowing him to get up and get ready for the season. If he was doing stuff on his own, like we see with James Cook or some other guys staying away from the team, we might think, is he really putting the work in? I mean, they're all putting the work in. They know this is their job, but if they're with the team, then they know, hey, we got our guys on them to do what they need to do. And then if he doesn't succeed, it kind of puts the onus back on the Bills saying, hey, he's with us all off season. And then if he fails, then hey, that's back on the strength and conditioning staff who they revamped. So he's doing what he needs to do, and then it just comes back on the bill to say, hey, here's what you're going to do to get bigger. And then if it works, great. If it doesn't, okay, then maybe he's just not a good prospect, but it wasn't for a lack of trying because he wasn't working with the team or something.
No, for sure. I also like spin with the comment of the night. Give Drew a break. Anyone could mistake a tight end stat line with tackles, interceptions, fumbles, and sacks. Hey, Steve Tasker was my favorite linebacker. Okay? That's all I have to say on the subject.
I think I'm taller than Steve Tasker.
Which is hilarious. So then I started thinking about other players and where they stack up in the offseason program and people who are working their way back from injury, kind of like Dalton Kincaid, just maybe in different ways. And my mind immediately goes to Taylor Rapp and Christian Benford, two defensive backs who play prominent roles on this team who we lost down the stretch heading into the championship game due to injuries. And both of them were sort of glaring, right? Like there was the Christian Benford. Now, I didn't get your thoughts, and maybe you've had some time to marinate on this when you were at my house for the game, but the idea that they rushed Christian Benford back out on the field only to watch him be almost immediately concussed and knocked out of the game and visibly shaken as quickly as he was, it's a bad look for the team.
Yes, in hindsight, it is, absolutely.
So that's what we spend a lot of time criticizing the Dolphins on when it comes to players, like Tua's health. Mm-hmm. So to see the fact that they allowed Benford to go out there kind of underscores how badly they didn't want Kyrie Elam to have to see the field.
Yeah, but I believe if they pass a concussion protocol and they go through and the player's feeling fine, and there's definitely ways to improve that. But if he's saying he's feeling fine, he's passing all the metrics that they do, they have to clear him. So like, I don't I don't blame the Bills medical staff for saying, hey, are you ready or not? Like, if they're going to not be sure, hey, you hold him out there. But if he passed all the metrics, he's doing fine, coming off the first concussion. Hindsight's 2020. It's like, yeah, he shouldn't have played coming off a concussion that quickly, but if he was able to pass all the stuff, then you go with the data that shows it, and he's able to do the stuff there. It's an awful look when he gets dinged up again, and then he's out like that. But I believe that they followed all the rules. Now, it is interesting. I went back and looked at this prior to that game. Every Bills player that had concussion in the playoffs passed a concussion protocol to be ready for that next game. So it's a coincidence.
It's a Festivus miracle.
It might be, but I'm going to defend the Bills medical staff that they did the right thing by the player, and I'm sure maybe the player fibbed a little bit or said, hey, I'm good to go, and then that happened again. But I don't think that there was anything nefarious going on, and I know that they followed the rules because that they've done that before. They've held guys out who I thought would be ready to go. It just came down to, hey, if you think you can play, and in this case with the concussion protocol, he passed the protocols, you're cleared to go. There could probably be a lot of improvements made with that protocol, but this is what the NFLPA and the NFL have agreed upon, and so until that changes, you have to go within what the rule constraints are.
So
Drew,
then,
my mom wants to know why you are so calm.
why am I so calm? I haven't had enough bowls of loudmouth soup. That's why.
I need another bowl of loudmouth soup while you're at it.
We're taking it east, is what we're doing here tonight.
That was a delicious old fashioned, by the way.
And now you get to enjoy something that's decidedly Cincinnati. Yeah, the way I described Hootie Delight to Kyle, and I think you agree with me, because Kyle's first synopsis of this beer was, is this supposed to taste like Bud Light? And I said, no, what it's supposed to be is Cincinnati's Bud Light. And here's why. Cincinnati, everything that they do sucks. And it's just a crappier version of something else that already exists. You know, Skyline Chili is just a crappier version of actual chili that's good, that's made everywhere else in the world. They decided they were going to make a worse version of it. Bud Light exists everywhere, but they decided the world needed Hootie Delight, in which case it's almost like you took more water and poured it into a Bud Light, which is redundant.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't taste bad. It just doesn't taste
like anything.
Yeah.
I said, I have a soda stream and I'll make, but I don't put flavor additives in it. I just carbonate the water and drink it. And I found that this does not taste that much different than the carbonated water that I drink sitting on my couch. Christian Benford doesn't really have a concussion history.
No,
he
doesn't.
And so in that way, I'm not overly worried about his long-term prognosis, even though the season ended disastrously for him. Taylor Rapp is an interesting case because he didn't just have one injury. He's had a multitude of various injuries over the last few, how long?
Every year. I mean, dating back to the Rams, I mean, he's just had a little bit of everything. Just, dating back to even college, hip flexor in college, ankle injuries, MCL sprain, ankle, shoulder concussion, ribs. He's always been banged up. I mean, you see his physical side of play. He's always got to have something, as he's dealing with that there.
Which is, I guess, should this give us a bigger appreciation for Jordan Poyer?
Yeah, because that dude played through a lot of shit.
Well, he played wildly physical football, and he didn't miss games. And then you look at Taylor Rapp, and he's only played one full season in his entire career.
When you sent me that, I was like, no, that's not right. And I look, I'm like, wow, really? I mean, that's...
Taylor Rapp has never played a full season. And it's because he plays the same style of football Jordan. And I guarantee you that's why they gravitated towards him as a free agent and prioritized bringing him back on a 2-year deal was, hey, he plays with the same physicality we used to have. It's just there was something about Jordan Poyer that made him one of one that he could do it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, he wants to come back. He said on Good Morning Football today that he wants to come back. I mean, if Rapp can't be out there, maybe you do bring Poyer back in. Man, you are dying tonight.
Do you bring Poyer back?
No, not at all. But otherwise for nostalgia. But
I like how Super Mexican in the chat says all cheap beer basically tastes the same. Lie. Tecate is one of the worst beers I've ever had. I was at a Mexican resort and I couldn't drink the stuff. And so I caught the guy in the hallway who stocks the fridges in your room.
You'll be at a Mexican resort next week.
And I caught him in the hallway and I was like, man, is there any way instead of Tecate, you could just give me Dos Equis? And he was, oh, senor, the rules. And I was like, I understand the rules. I get it. I appreciate anything you can do for me. And I handed him a $5 bill. These resorts don't like you tipping people. And now I understand why. I gave that guy a $5 bill. I came back to my room from breakfast, and there was no more room in the fridge. It had just been packed with Dos Equis. There was like a case of them in there. And then my girlfriend at the time got mad at me because she's like, well, now what am I supposed to do with my leftovers from lunch? Throw them away. I don't know, lady. Our room is stocked, and this is what I came on vacation for. So no, Super Mexican, not all cheap beer is the same.
I had the one that tastes like apple juice. It was $10 for a 24-pack.
Ew.
It was a
what?
Yeah. Okay. So this is down in Pennsylvania. It was a Pennsylvania something. I want to say it's Pennsylvania Delight, but that's not right. And you could get it at any beer distributor. It was brewed in Wisconsin, but marketed as Pennsylvania beer or whatever. And it was $10 for 24-pack. Now this is almost 20 years ago, which is really sobering to say, but we got it, and you poured it out, and there was nothing. It fizzled out immediately, and it tasted like apple juice with a aftertaste. And I'm like, I'm sure it gets you drunk, but I mean, man, it wasn't anything. Like, we got it as a joke because it was so cheap. I mean, my brother was like, "This is great." I'm like, "Well, that's what you get for $10 here." But
that reminds me of the time that I was at Consumers Beverage, Jenny C. There's enough listeners here who are local or at least understand the Western New York region. Genesee beer, and there's Jenny Red Label, which is the original Genesee recipe. And our local Consumers beer distributors had them on sale, $9.99 for a case, Chris. A 24-pack of beers for $9.99. And this was pre-COVID. This was back in like 20. So I bought 2 cases because I was like, oh my God, I haven't had Jenny in forever and I'm getting a deal. I drank a bunch of them. I want to say I had like 11 one night. I woke up with the worst stomach ache of my entire, I've eaten the ice. I've drank water off the reservation down there in Mexico. I've had the Montezuma's Revenge. My stomach hurt worse from Red Label Genesee. And I looked around and I'm like, this is why it's $9.
Yep.
Because you're not supposed to be drinking it.
Yep.
This is the chaff that they were like, oh God, we got to get rid of this.
Yep.
I'm looking at this. Gotta love that cream ale. Jenny Cream Ale. Guys, in the chat, what is your favorite cheap beer? I want to hear all of them. And I'd like to know regionally, because I know some of you aren't from here. Some of you are from England. Some of you are from California. Let me know, what is your favorite cheap beer as we go on through the show?
Well, we know Oliver and Terry's in England is they like Seagram's Escapes. They're just mad they can't get it over there.
So with Taylor Rapp, when you think about the fact that he was kind of removed from the game, and like the last time we saw him, he gets injured on a play where he run. And this is where you saw Anthony Prohaska bristle the other week at me calling Taylor Rapp injury prone. But I said, he's a kamikaze. He's a danger to the people around him. But he is either injuring someone or getting hurt running into one of his own players a lot. More so than any player in a Bills uniform I can remember recently.
I agree.
So when you hear that he had an injury to the hip that was so bad after running into Damar Hamlin against Baltimore, that after he had that first interception, he almost immediately, he wasn't seen again in the second half or anywhere thereafter.
Correct. Yeah, he had a hip injury and there was mystery.
And then he did not play against Kansas City.
Correct.
So do we know what that hip injury was? And is there any question of hey, where might this guy be frail heading into this season?
I thought at the time that he suffered a labral injury because he got the hip really jammed up and in, but I haven't seen any reports that he had surgery. I believe we've seen him working out at OTAs. Now I think about it, I haven't seen any pictures, but I'm not really paying attention to that. So I'm going to have to go back and look at that later. And I did pull up the Bills website for that. So he's always been a smaller guy. You have a lot of guys who are smaller in safety. So it's not like you need to have him bulked up. I mean, who's the biggest safety that you know? I don't know. But he's been playing for a long time. He knows how to take care of his body. He just unfortunately plays so hard that injuries are kind of part of his game, and he's been getting older. So I know that there's talk about whether Damar Hamlin can make the team this year or whether the game plan is. But I almost feel like you either have to go heavy on safety because Rapp might be out, or you have to have some guys on the practice squad be ready to go in case Rapp can't go, because he's been unavailable the last 2 postseasons.
Kyle in the chat, is it Lionhead?
No, that wasn't it. It was Pennsylvania something, but it was a brown label. I can't remember what the heck it was, though. I mean, I could maybe text my brother. He might know. In fact, I will do that right now.
Jeremy, Stella Artois is shit beer. Even
Stella Artois,
I know that.
It's bad beer for people who want to feel fancy. There's a reason that they sell the 12 packs of it, buy one get one at consumers. And at the same time, they're like, hey, you can get this chalice. Ooh, look at this fancy glass if you just buy this 12 pack. You know what? The last time I drank out of a Stella Artois chalice was? It was when Alabama won the national title with O.J. Howard, the the Clemson killer. And I drank a magnum bottle of like J. Roget champagne. Not even good champagne. Like, I think that magnum bottle cost me $7. I drank the whole thing, and I drank it out of that chalice while I blasted music in the basement. And in retrospect, I'll never forget this. I chipped the glass and then cut my lip on it. And I still felt fancy walking around with it. And my wife said, yeah, I was walking holding it like a wine glass, like in my hand. And I go, this is what it's for. It's for people who are drunk and pretentious. That's why that beer exists.
Exactly.
My mom texts me. She wants me to edit you out coughing.
That's
It's probably why she left.
Just throw out the whole episode then.
yeah. I was gonna say Donna. Oh well, now that she's gone, guys. I used to.
She might still be there. You don't know.
That's the acid test, right? Let's see. Lion's Head, PA. Stella Artois. Now that's classy. Stella's the Goldschlager of beers. That is a great analogy. Stella is the Goldschlager of beers. It's that beer that people pretend to like. Anybody who's ever like, oh, I like Goldschlager. Do you? Okay, here's a shot of it. Do it. And everyone's like, yeah, I'd prefer not to. Of course you would. It's gross. It's disgusting. There's no redeeming quality about
Is
it.
it like Malort?
No, but what it is it's like a cinnamon punch in the face, but oh, there's gold flake in it. Ooh.
I saw something on Reddit looking for Malort the other day. I was like, why the hell would you look for that?
Yeah, Malort. No, everyone needs a little Malort in their life, at least once.
By the way, Taylor Rapp has been at OTAs. He's doing some upper body work, but he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's there and he's doing some stuff. So that's good. And then I just think about he's important, but also it makes me wonder if his injury down the stretch and what we saw happen afterwards when Taylor Rapp was forced out of the lineup isn't part of the reason you go and say, hey, I'm going to draft a guy who projects as a safety. And I have safeties on my I'm going to retain DeMar Hamlin. I'm going to draft a guy who projects as a safety. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go sign Derek Forrest.
Yep.
Who, before being kind of just like over talented out of a starting position, was a very talented safety for the Washington Commanders. I think that they built that depth around the idea of we like Taylor Rapp. Mm-hmm. Taylor Rapp might be our go-to guy. We now know that this safety depth that we've accumulated needs depth behind it because it seems to get tested on a regular basis.
I mean, they have to get through this season. I mean, they can cut him this year and not be, hard out. But I mean, you keep him for another year and maybe move on from him because then his dead cap in 2026 is $666,000. I mean, that's nothing. I mean, they've cut guys for less. I mean, they can cut him this year and it's 2.7, but you want to try to. He's better on the roster than he is cutting, and you're still paying him money. So.
For $2.7 million, you'd rather have him than not have him.
Exactly.
But what you're probably hoping is somebody here on the roster shows you enough that you're comfortable letting him walk next year.
Exactly.
So that you can maybe you retain Derek Forrest.
Yeah.
And he becomes one of your, because they've always kept 4.
Yeah.
So maybe Derek Forrest becomes your 4, along with the rookie you drafted. And then it's hopefully this is the year that you see what's his face, second round pick
Cole Bishop.
Cole Bishop. He steps into a more prominent role, and then you can have a guy like DeMar Hamlin who hangs around for a minimal salary, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
These things are all there, but it's all a reality that we have to deal with in this preseason and the run up to the season because of Taylor Rapp's injury history and his just proclivity to get hurt doing all not just get hurt, but hurt other people.
Exactly. And it's good that they're at least planning ahead for this stuff rather than saying, hey, we're going to get as much as we can out of him. And then when this guy goes, we don't have a game plan. Like, it's good they're looking a year, 2, 3 years ahead saying this could happen. Let's get the guys in the building now and get them up to speed. So when we do it to cut this guy, you're not screwed.
B-Ski, yeah, Stella's great. Shave the foam off the beer. Why? I shouldn't have to shave my beer, right? Like, I like my women like I like my beers. I don't have to shave them, right? Like they don't have 5 o'clock shadow. I like Oliver. And this might be actually the most.
My mom's still here.
See, I like how I pump faked saying something that I know Chris would get embarrassed by, and he's like, "Whoa, my mom might not have liked." Oliver with the most on-brand statement for him of all time. The only time I've drunk Stella is when it's given to me for free at a barbecue. Don't be embarrassed, Oliver. Don't ever turn down a free beer. That's my motto. If a free sandwich, a free beer, if the price is free, it's good for me. It's good enough for me.
Even free psychedelics outside the stadium?
Oh, dude, listen. Yeah, the time I got free psychedelics, I wish they had told me. For those of you who don't know that story, there was a game against the Jets. It was Sam Darnold's game here where he beat the Bills. There was these really dorky looking, like, maybe early 40-somethings. Like, they were older than me. I was in my mid-20s. They were all standing around a garbage can chugging a Gatorade that they go, oh, it's mixed with Kraken. We just have to finish it because we can't go in the stadium with, booze. Do you want some? And of course, I just being part of the circle trying to finish my beer, I took the thing and I took a big pound off it and I gave it to them. And they all had like a kind of a harmless vibe to them. So I was like, oh, okay, it's some guys. This drink's probably not that strong. It'll be fine. So then I get to my seat and I'm clapping. And I remember being in the first quarter clapping. And all of a sudden I'm seeing trails coming off my fingers. And I'm like, uh-oh, this is a problem. There's a whole thing. Fast forward, Chris is texting my wife going, you need to come get, my wife happened to be at the game that day. Texting my wife going, you need to come get your husband.
You laid down at in the bleachers in section 200, row 7, and you had said to me, why are my feet so far away from me? That's how fucked up you were.
And then I was eating snow from under the bleachers. Yeah. So then we leave the game and I'm still not sober. Everyone's like, oh, my wife shows up and goes, he's just drunk.
Only time I've ever had to drive home from a game, because every time we got passed on the highway back to Drew's house, he would reach over and honk at people anytime somebody passed.
Because it felt like they were going too fast.
And then we got back to the house and I went inside and I told your wife, I go, Drew is totally fucked up. And she goes, no, this is like probably the drunkest he's been at a game. And I turn around to go, this is not alcoholism, and you're army crawling across the front yard.
And my wife goes, where are you going? And I go, the front door is so far away. And I spoke so clearly, it dawned on her like, oh no, he's not drunk. There's something else entirely going on here. I got drugged at a Bills game. So guys, let that be a lesson to you. Don't accept drinks from strangers in the parking lot, okay? Now, with all of that aside, Taylor Rapp's health, it's a question mark, but not one that they would make a roster decision based on.
No,
right?
They build around it, but not get rid of him because of that.
So then I guess the question becomes, if they're not going to get rid of him, this almost becomes a conversation about kind of previewing training camp. Defensive back is going to be a hotly contested battle for roster spots.
Absolutely.
Because if they're going to keep a Taylor Rapp, but they also want Derek Forrest to challenge for a spot, but then they have a rookie that they prioritize drafting as a safety, you've got a crowded safety room. You've got a crowded cornerback room. You've got a lot going on here that needs to be resolved by the end of training camp. And it sounds like health isn't going to be a thing that disqualifies a guy one way or the other right now.
Not unless something happens during training camp.
So with that said, I want to look at the defensive backs who are entering that we know have injuries. Trey White. Yep. Trey White, let's talk about his reacclimation and his return to Buffalo. You know, it was cool hearing, like, I know some people threw shade at it, but Josh Allen has no reason to lie when he says he didn't know that they re-signed him until he was like, saw him in the building and was like, oh shit, what are you doing here?
It's amazing. You would think that they would get like some type of internal messaging, hey, we're signing this guy or this or that, but like as far as we know, there's nothing like that.
I'm not gonna lie, if I was a GM, I wouldn't want that. I
Yeah.
would want to be able to, if I'm talking about offense, maybe I go to my quarterback and pick his brain about, hey, this guy, here's a skill set that we think might be helpful for you. What do you think? But if I'm going defense, I don't want to give my quarterback a bigger ego than he already has. You don't get consulted on this. I don't care for Josh Allen. I sign guys. I'm Brandon Bean. And then when Trey White shows up, Josh Allen's just happy to see him. So with that, Trey White returning here after a short stint with the Baltimore Ravens, after a disastrous first half of the season with the Rams, I want to talk about what his health is based on what his injury was and how he seems to have recovered from that. Because the first injury that he had, I mean, the Achilles tear was just like ACL tear is one thing. Players do that. They get the surgery, they come back and they're still productive. To then tear, like as soon as you see significant playing time, to immediately tear an Achilles is just soul crushing.
It is. It was awful to see because he worked so hard to get back, and then it's just.
And to know the mental part of it for him, how mentally difficult it was for Trey White to get back in the ring after tearing his ACL,
Yep.
to then suffer the second most devastating injury in the NFL you can suffer, a torn Achilles.
Yep.
It's like this guy's cursed. So then we cut him, which is a move that everybody predicted but still hated to see. And then he goes to the Rams for $10 million. And you go, shit, I wasn't going to pay him $10 million. And he's awful. He's benched. But he's a player coming off catastrophic injury. What did you expect? Halfway through the year, he gets picked up by the Ravens, and he becomes a key piece of their dime packages. Specifically, he would play cornerback, sometimes outside corner, but it was never as a starting, he was never in their nickel packages. Mm-hmm. He always came in to play dime. And that was more a byproduct of what the Ravens wanted to do with the size that they had at cornerback and shuffling it inside to stop teams like Buffalo who run a lot of big slots, tight ends who can catch. He was their answer to say, listen, when teams go big on the inside against us, we have an option where we can roll the dice and throw Trey White on the outside and he's okay. And he showed well enough that the Bills brought him back on an incentive-laden contract. The upshot for him from a health perspective, based on your research and all the stuff you've done over at bangedupbills.com, are you concerned at all about re-injury for him?
Not really. I mean, that seems crazy to think about after we had the back-to-back severe injuries like that. But the ACL, he happened back in 2021. So he's outside usually that 2-year window we have for re-injury. So that's great to see. The Achilles, that happened the next year. I mean, he played through the rest of 2022 and then injured 2023. And then, he was cutting everything. So then he played 2024 with Rams and Ravens. The chance to re-tear an Achilles is pretty low. Like, it does happen, but it's like less than 15%, which isn't nothing, but it's pretty low. It just takes a similar mechanism, and he's been working through with all that stuff. And there's a weird correlation between the ACL and Achilles. Like, we're seeing it, but it's not like it's because you tear ACL, you're going to tear your Achilles or vice versa.
Correlation doesn't mean causation.
Exactly. So there is that correlation, but it's not because of the causation. The problem is he can come back and play. There's guys that have shown they can play, return at a respectable level, but they never returned to their previously high level. I have enough research to show that. I think there's only been one player that returned back to a Pro Bowl, at least being selected to Pro Bowl, and that was Richard Sherman coming off an Achilles injury. Everybody else either played for a few more years and kind of faded out, and I believe that's probably the trend for Tre'Davious White. I mean, he's been playing since 2017. He's approaching 10 years. He's going to be able to play. He has knowledge to be in position, but he's not going to be the player that was once an all-pro player. And it's a shame, but that's just the reality of him getting older. He kind of hit his peak. We're catching him on his down slope, but we're still going to get a little bit more out of him.
You're going to get more out of him than you did Kyrie Elam in the championship game. Because those reps, Chris, I did a brief podcast, as hoarse as I was, with
Ken McCusick?
Ken McCusick from Ravens Film Study Ravens, over the weekend, as my voice was kind of starting to return. And one of the things I talked about was there were reps in that championship game against the Chiefs where Kyrie Elam was not just away from his man. Kyrie Elam's man in zone coverage would come off the line of scrimmage and then break on an in-cutting route. Kyrie Elam has no feel for zone, so he backpedals too far, and then in trying to crash back in, trips himself and falls down. You are not an NFL football player at that point.
Correct.
Trey White, even now on the downslope of his career with his injuries and everything else, will never be that.
No.
He will never be that for you. And I think that's why he and Dane Jackson are here. And I think that he and Dane Jackson are probably fighting for a roster spot.
And I'm willing to bet they're probably going to give it to Travis White if he can perform. And
Sure.
I'm fine with him being the veteran presence. They can step in, but he's not the answer long term. But get, your guys, Maxwell Harris up to speed, get any of the young guys up to speed. But by no means is he your answer. He might be a short-term gap, you need from a game or two. But if you're relying on Travis White for full season, I'm not saying he can't do the job, but there could be better longer-term options.
I'll tell you this, but there's also a lot of overreactionary idiots on Twitter right now who are upset with themselves. Or I guess if you're saying these things on social media, you're probably not self-aware enough to have remorse or like self-reflection. But the people who are bagging on the Trey White signing because they're like, oh, this doesn't move the needle. This defense sucks. Bean sucks. He's going to bring in the same slow DBs. This is stupid. He got the fastest defensive back at his disposal in the draft. Are you done crying about it now? Trey White was always going to be just a piece.
Yeah.
Just
And, he has
piece.
the knowledge to do what he needs to do. Like, I'm loving the fact that he's back in there because he can help guys out. Yes, he's not the same player he once was, but what are you going to find a guy that almost 10 years in the league that's going to be as good as he was day one? They're going to fade. They're going to adapt. They're going to change, but he's going to be able to show that he can still play, still perform when he needs to, and impart that knowledge. Like, go back to the Von Miller stuff there. Yeah, he wasn't what it was because of injury, but he's still able to impart all the knowledge that he had to help make the other guys better around him. So there's still value in having a guy like Travis White on the roster, even though he's not performing, because he can show, hey, this is what I did wrong. Here's how you can improve. Here's what I did wrong with this guy, and tape study, all this stuff with that. There's still a ton of value. Hopefully he can stick on the roster to really help these guys out and get them up to the next level and get them ready for the season.
And health-wise, you trust Tre'Davious White.
I do. Like I said, he's not going to be performing at the highest level right now, but I'm not worried about the ACL. I'm not worried about the Achilles. He stayed in LA for that reason to help make sure he rehabbed. He had a great surgeon. He had a great rehab. He got better throughout the season. It takes time, but we're not going to see all pro Tre'Davious White, but we might see a better than replacement level guy.
I like Jeremy Rogers in the chat. I feel like the depth on this defense would have won Fitzy a ring in 2011.
It's very possible. If he
hadn't broken his ribs, maybe this team goes out there with that. Instead, we had I believe that was Dave Wanstead or David Edwards, one of the two DCs who gave up we were scoring 30 points, but giving up 27.
I want to say Dave Wanstead.
Dave Wanstead and his stupid mustache.
Yeah.
I feel like he wanted to be, he was dollar store, Chris, remember the time Brett Coleman got called dollar store B Rabbit?
Yes.
Because he had a winter cap on and he immediately got rid of that photo. I feel like Dave Wanstead is a Dollar General version of Magnum PI.
Yeah.
Like when you think about that terrible mustache, and if I had seen that guy in short shorts, that would have been the end. I would have had him trotted right out of Buffalo.
Exactly. Hey, real quick, I want to highlight. My brother got back to me. Now I texted him in the show. It was Pennsylvania style lager, and I wanted the picture.
Wow, what a name for a beer!
Right? It was brewed in
Pennsylvania
Wisconsin.
style lager.
On Beer Advocate, it rates a 2.52 out of 5. And multiple people are saying, "Hey, this is what you get for $11 a case." So
you get what you pay for.
$11 a case. What did I expect? It's like, it's a beer, but it's not fancy. So
and then
that answers my question. So thank you.
Honestly, that kind of correlates to Trey White right now. Well, what do you expect? You're going to get what you pay for. Don't expect him to be a starter, but at the same time, he can be a nice veteran piece to a room.
Yep, Tre'Davious White is Pennsylvania style lager. It gets the job done.
Trey White equals Pennsylvania. You know what? I love that. I love that. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while.
Thank you to my brother, Adam, for getting back to me so quickly.
So then that brings me to the rookie class, because we're here talking about injuries and why he might be able to help some of these guys. Maxwell Hairston, right? If we're talking about the rookie class, Maxwell Hairston, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson, 3 of our first 4 draft picks are guys whose college careers were kind of synonymous with the injuries they suffered. In fact, you could argue part of the reason that they were, now Maxwell Hairston notwithstanding. Trey Amos, though, he's a guy who had injury things.
We found it after the fact, yes.
After the fact. But again, this is where we talked about, we just recorded our Mocking the Mocks podcast. This is where you don't understand the level of health information that GMs have and teams have comparative to what the public has.
Much less out here.
So when you mock draft that Trey Amos would be a good fit for the Bills, you don't know that Brandon Beane's taking that guy down his board to like the 4th round because of whatever his injury prognosis is.
He was a great fit. Like, I thought that he was going to be a selection there, but he had back injury. They found out. I mean, they knew about the combine stuff, but that wasn't something I found in my research. But that's probably why he got knocked down a little bit. But otherwise, I was like,
Will
this is a great
Johnson.
fit. Yeah.
Everyone goes, Will Johnson's one of the best, and it would be a windfall if he's
that
there
knee
for the
is
Bills.
a bad thing.
And this is it. And the teams know just how bad.
Yes.
Not just like, oh, it's a knee thing and it could be a problem. No, it's a problem. It's a real degenerative issue. You're not going to sink a 1st-round pick into that guy.
Correct. He was what, 3rd round, I think it was?
Second.
Okay.
So you're going to use it on a guy who you have a 5th-year option on.
Yes.
So with that said, they looked at Maxwell Hairston, but he's not without injury. Maxwell Hairston is a shoulder injury. Now, here's what I love about this, and I wanted to pick your brain about. It's a shoulder injury. First, I want you to describe it for our listeners so they understand what it is and how it might happen. Like, what's the nature of his shoulder injury?
So he suffered AC joint sprain, which is routine. It's like, you know, everybody gets them and they just deal with it. The problem with Maxwell Hairston was he got a numbing injection to help manage the pain there. The problem was that needle was dirty and got infected and got the whole area infected. So he go in the hospital after the game. He tried playing through it and missed 5 games because he was battling an infection. And this was a really interesting case to follow because there wasn't anything else about that. I found out later Bob McGinn of Go Long TD with Tyler Dunn had some information on that. But the problem with that was I didn't find out after the fact. So you're thinking, okay, it could be SC joint sprain, which takes a little bit longer. And then you find out, okay, well, sometimes you can have an injury, develop septic arthritis. Well, that's not the case there. And then you find out there was a dirty needle, which things can happen. It's not perfect.
Well, look at the guy who punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung.
I mean, those things happen.
How do you let any of these guys near you with a needle? I'm terrified of needles. You throw an alligator into my kitchen, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Fire, broken bones, you show me a needle.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me, but everybody's a little different. But I mean, that's the reason why he missed so long, because he was battling the infection and he got that cleared up. He had to go to the hospital for a little bit for that. So it was quite an adventure finding out what was going on with that stuff. We needed some more information after the draft, but I have zero concern with Maxwell Hairston. But think about it. Like, if you're sick, you're not moving around as well. If you're hurting like that, I'm not sure what shoulder, but he was not fearful of tackling, but hesitant. But hopefully, I mean, we know that everything's cleared up. He should be just good to go, come training camp.
Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, when you think about his performance in college, there was a lot of people who talk about how, he can't tackle. He got a numbing shot, tries to play a game. What I don't like is it's disingenuous when people go, he can't tackle because of the shoulder injury.
Well,
I don't buy that.
The shoulder was inflamed and painful. It's not because it was because of the infection, not because of the actual shoulder injury.
But also, that was just part of his career. He spent a long time not being able to tackle well. So that's the thing that they're going to
I'll leave cover 1 for those assessments. They're far better at that than me.
And what I love is when they say it, they get yelled at for being anti-Bills player, whatever. It's hilarious. Chris, Anthony's famous bit about how someone called him a cuck online because he goes, I put this out here with no he goes with no of
I
none
would
of my own
rather
input.
have Trey Amos.
With
You
none,
cuck, you voted for Kamala.
yeah, some guy tweeted that at Anthony Prohaska from Cover One, and all he did was put out a video of Maxwell Hairston trying to tackle and said, I put this out here without comment. He goes, I'm not giving you my opinion, I'm just showing you some opportunities this guy had to make tackles and didn't make them. And they were bad missed tackles. And the guy immediately is like, you're a loser, liberal. Also Trey Amos. And it's like, wait a minute, that guy's hurt. And he went to the bottom of the 2nd round. Everybody passed on that guy.
Yep.
It's why I hate draft conjecture as a whole. But the shoulder injury shouldn't be anything to worry about.
God, no.
Going forward in his
Once
program.
I figured out that was what it was, because he was a risk originally, because I'm like, why you missed 5 games? Find his affection. Okay, no big deal. That's why he was drafted in the 1st round. I will say this till I'm blue in the face. The Bills are very conservative in the 1st and 2nd rounds with injuries. They don't pick guys with lingering issues, joint or ligament tears, things that can really linger and cause problems. So that's why he was drafted in the 1st round, because there's no injury concerns moving forward as of right now.
Spin. We're keeping 4 safeties, Rapp, Bishop, Hamlin, and Forrest. Hancock competing with Lewis for a roster spot. I hope you're right. Because
I agree with that.
Because Cam Lewis strikes me as the next Dane Jackson. He's a guy who's going to hang around or Levi Wallace, a guy who hangs around long enough that some team finally goes, well, shit, if the Bills aren't going to cut him and they just keep paying him $1 million a year, we'll give him 4 because he seems useful. So you need to have a backup plan for when somebody comes, or maybe Hancock plays so well during camp that you can then go to some other cornerback needy team and say, hey, look, I have a Cam Lewis. What's it worth to you?
Yep.
Can I get a 5th rounder? Can I get a 6th round pick and see what I can spin that into? I like Ariola Grande saying Kincaid is not 245. Let's put a Seagram's bet on the level of variance between his actual weight. Should we say 5 pounds? So what? You're saying not 245, but you want to say he's not, 241? Because here's what I'll say. The difference in 4 pounds is literally me whether I've been drinking on one day or not. Like, if I drink one day and then don't drink for 2 days, my weight could fluctuate 4 pounds. Are you willing to bet a Seagram's, Ariola Grande? Are you willing to bet that I'm wrong by more than 4 pounds? Let me know, because you seem real cocky about this. Now,
how are we going to verify this?
We will figure
Simple.
it out.
I text Reed. I go, Reed.
We text Reed Ferguson.
I need you to weigh Dalton Kincaid on this day. Take a video and send it to me.
So, Teddy Brandon, Levi Wallace pissed me off so much. Levi Wallace, I ran into him at the Buffalo airport and just gave him a Roll Tide, and he was so happy. He's like, oh, you remember I'm from Alabama? I was like, yeah, I know where you're from. I saw that. So, the 2 biggest wild cards out of the rookie class, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson, both had significant injuries that earlier in their careers, the trajectory for them ending up on the Bills roster was exactly the same. They had collegiate injuries in their final year that hampered their productivity and pushed them far enough down the draft board that the Bills were able to land them. If this was a year prior, both of those players are first-round picks.
If you're going off the 2023 tape for Walker, yes. As for Jackson, I don't know. Maybe he's still maybe a 2nd-round pick, but with the depth, they probably all get pushed down, which is to the Bills' benefit.
So with that said, of the 2, let's talk about injuries. Whose do you think was most significant in college? Like Deion Walker or Landon Jackson?
Walker, for sure.
So what was the injury Walker had?
So Walker had a pars defect, which is the pars inticularis. That's a part of the vertebrae, which basically connects the vertebral body to the actual arch and then the spinous process, everything. It's the weakest part of the vertebral bone as a whole there. And sometimes that can happen with...
So where is that? Upper or lower back?
It's all through more of the thoracic and lumbar area, but this specific issue is found more in the lumbar area, which is the small of the back there. So this happens often at like L4, L5, L5, S1, but in the actual lumbar vertebrae. So basically what happens is where this weak part of the bone, this could be congenital. Jerry Ostrowski actually talked about that on Bill Squad. He dealt with that, though he didn't have any issues when he played, but one of his sons had to retire from football, and the other one helped manage that, like through rehab and things like that. So this is basically where the bone starts to either have a stress fracture, which is what Walker had, or it actually breaks, and that actually causes a slippage of the vertebral body forward, which goes from spondylolisthesis to spondylolisthesis, and that's really hard to say when you've had a few beers. So anyway, really what happens is he had the spondylolisthesis where there was the stress fracture, and so there was starting to be breakage in the bone, but there wasn't actual true fracture, and he was still in the pain. That's why you kind of see him leaning on guys, having trouble getting up from the ground. And this happens by hyperextension, and him being a bigger guy. We see this with jumping injuries or jumping athletes. And sometimes it's not a problem until you start realizing, hey, I'm having pain. That's not getting better. And then you do some imaging and you see what's called a scotty dog fracture. And the reason why that is because the way the bones line up there, it kind of looks like a scotty dog. Why somebody figured that out, I don't know. That's in the literature. So they see that the it's broken in half, or it's starting to kind of fracture, and then that's where they say, hey, this is what's going on, and they need to start let that heal up. So Brandon Beane's already said, hey, we're gonna take this guy slow because They discovered this at NFL Combine. And the reason why they discovered this at the NFL Combine was because every lineman, offense, defense, has to take a lumbar x-ray. It's mandatory. That's the only mandatory imaging that they have to do.
Really?
Yes. I found that out. It was like funny. I found that out. I remember finding it, and then you forget about it, and you're like, wait, that's the thing. I went and looked it up. So they have to do that. So that's how they found it. I'm not sure that Kentucky knew about it, or if they imaged it and they said, okay, this is something we're going to deal with. Because, I mean, they're going to shut him down for when he's going to go to the draft. But that's why that they found it at the NFL Combine. So this is why you're having this back issue. So they have to let things heal up and then they slowly load the bone back up. I mean, at this point, it's healed back up, but they can't just suddenly say, hey, go hit a blocking sled, go hit guys full force. They don't want to go stress in that area again and start that whole process over and over again. So that's why we didn't see him doing anything at rookie minicamp other than individual drills. That's why we're not going to see him at mandatory minicamp really doing anything. They're going to slowly bring him along and make sure that that back doesn't cause any problems. And there's guys that they find that up to 50% of guys they think have this issue. It's just whether there's a problem with it or not. And I think more in the literature that guys that they know have it documented is like 6 to 11%. Once again, I dig into this stuff way too much. I'm a fucking dork with this stuff. So this is why you have me on. But anyway, so we know this is a thing, and we know that guys get drafted lower. They have a slightly shorter career. They play less snaps overall and play fewer games, but we're talking like 4 or 5 games total. Yeah. But their performance is not impacted, and the career average length is about 4 years. So that's perfect for the rookie deal. So if he gets through the 4 years and this back is shit, hey, thanks for everything. Here's your money. Get lost. But if he can continue managing it, that's great. We can keep him on. But there's a reason why he dropped to the 4th round, and he was a calculated risk. So yes, this is a bigger injury. Going back to the original question you said. However, the Bills know what they're doing drafting this guy. They know how they want to manage him. They're going to ease him in and make sure that he's not going to have any setbacks. But I am not going to be concerned if he shows up on the injury report with a back injury. I am not going to be concerned if he has to miss a game or two. It's just all about managing things to keep him healthy. So when he does have to get out there, he can perform at his best instead of leaning on guys and being a fat slob like everybody says he is.
I feel like that's interesting because that's more of the NBA model of, hey, we know our players, our tallest guys might have the biggest knee injuries or knee issues. So we give them rest days or we give them rest games or we do this and we do that.
Load management. I
and
hate
so
that
it's
term.
interesting that they took a 4th round flyer on a guy who had 1st round talent a year ago. And
injury discount.
But injury discount, and you go, hey, if all I care about, and this is where you go back and you hear Brandon Beane talk, and he goes, listen, we're not just scouting the player, we're also scouting the fit and what his career longevity might be, where we see him stacking up. This might never be a starter, but he might be a hell of a rotational player.
Yep.
They may view Deion Walker as nothing more than a great rotational, like sort of a one tech sized 3 tech. And they say, listen, we can throw him out there on certain downs. He's going to play 30% of snaps every year for 4 years. And if he's good, maybe we extend him a little bit. Or if he's good enough that he gets a massive deal, we let him walk and we don't care. It plays into the compensatory pick formula. And we don't lose. There's no losing by drafting him. But you just have to have the right healthcare approach to make sure that he's healthy enough to perform.
And they've come out and said that. And frankly, let's face it, if he has a better career than Terrell Troop, then we're winning. So, 2nd round pick, by the way.
The guy we drafted ahead of Robert Gronkowski.
Yes.
God. And what I love is in the comments, if you can read that over there, I had a spondylolisthesis in Lyme in Cancun once, but I can't remember.
How do you say spondylolisthesis in Spanish? I have no fucking clue, man.
This is hilarious. I love our listeners. So then you look at Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson's another guy who had in hockey, they would call it a lower body injury.
Many.
And they wouldn't tell you. They would just say, well, it's a lower body injury and he's a little hampered and he's a little slow this week. He's a guy who didn't enter college football with a lot of lower body flexibility. And so it was a problem. And he still has developed. He's developed some. He's not a bendy athlete by any stretch. But to know the history of his injuries and how that might have shaped how teams scouted him and viewed him, it's different. So in totality, like, what do you see in his injury history?
I mean, he's had a lot of stuff. He's gotten better throughout his career, but he had ACL tear, ankle fracture in high school, and then he retore that ACL in college at LSU, and then he still dealt with the ankle injury. It seemed like it nagged him for a little bit. And then he was okay, and once he transferred to Arkansas, he got a little bit healthier. And then
Sure, and in 2023, he was a wrecking ball.
Yeah, he was
And that
fine.
was the year that I watched him play and said, oh my God, I watched him jack up the Alabama offensive line. This kid's a phenom. I can't wait to see him in the NFL.
Yep. And then the only concern he had in 2024 was neck injury, which he had to get carted off, which is standard procedure if there's any type of
Yes.
potential issues for that. So my concern was, hey, as long as there's not any underlying, herniated disc, stenosis, that's not going to stop guy from getting drafted, but it might drop down their draft stock. The teams know what's going on with him, the imaging, things like that. But there's a reason why he dropped down in the third round, because there might be some durability issues. He's played through a lot of stuff. He's a great football player. Maybe he turns out to be a Max Crosby. Maybe he turns out to be AJ Epinesa, but he dropped for a reason, but it's also a deep draft class. So maybe he's a second round pick in any of the year, but I'm fine with him taking it because he seemed like he was Bill's guy through and through.
With his archetype, it's okay, because if you don't want to pay AJ Epinesa $9 million next year, you can just let Landon Jackson be what Epinesa is right now.
Exactly. We've done very well in the third round. I mean, I'm going to pull up the draft history for the Bills, over the, since Brandon Beane got here. It's been really, really remarkable. So,
Well, he's good on late picks to begin with.
Yes.
He has done better on the later picks than he has on the early ones, and Dalton Kincaid doesn't make that any easier, right? When people go, "Oh, you drafted a tight end who gets hurt. Oh, good first round pick." It's like, guys, you don't understand. He's swinging for the fences here with the 20th or later pick.
Yep.
Because you're a winning football team. You should be happy you're a winning football team.
Exactly. I mean, looking back at the previous few drafts, Dwayne Carter's still, the jury's out on him. But, I mean, Dorian Williams has turned into something nice. Terrell Bernard has been fantastic. Spencer Brown has been phenomenal. Then you got Zach Moss, who, I mean, he's still playing. He's good. He was good coming out of college. He's has some durability concerns, but he's shown that he can play. And then Devin Singletary didn't have any injury concerns coming out of college. Harrison Phillips has some issues, but more often than not, you're hitting guys with insane talent, with injury concerns, and it's panned out more often than not for the Bills, which I'm fine with them taking a swing on third round on a guy who might have had some banged up issues, but they can play, and it's worked out more often than not.
Hell yeah. I'm fired up. I'm fired up just talking about it. Also, I saw a comment that has made my night. Chris, I'd ask if the doctor said you need a backiotomy, but I know you don't watch movies. I reference the movie Half Baked at least once a week. Doctor says I need a backiotomy. He goes, what is it? He goes, oh, hey, say, he goes, hey, give me what old green eyes hug. I come in here, Joseph, I have 3 beers. Chris and I have a dispute over pre-show production, and I lambaste him. We yell at each other for about 5. In fact, we don't yell at each other because Chris doesn't yell at me. I yell. Chris just goes, well, here's how I perceived what you said. And then, Joseph, I have a beer. I finish my first one. I look at Chris. I go, I'm sorry for yelling. I'm sorry for yelling, just like Half Baked.
Super Mexican with $25 super chat.
Holy shit.
We're not at 1,000 subs yet, so we can't access that $25 plus the 50 you gave us earlier in I told Drew we did we're mocking the mocks episode we recorded before this. Super Mexican, I'm this close to collecting bottles and cans and donating them, and probably going to Goodwill and thrifting and finding something with the original tag on it and then selling it on eBay because I have no money. I need a job.
I love how he's saying this.
Nobody's interviewing for shit.
I love how he's saying this. Meanwhile, his wife would absolutely just be like, stop that. Stop that.
You got a sugar mama.
You've got a sugar mama. You're fine.
And hey, listen, me and my wife go to Goodwill and find great shit for the kids and our stuff all the time. It's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's because it's your kids. No one likes your kids. And they don't deserve stuff like that.
And this is why, see, guys, this is what the Rock Pile Report's all about. It's like getting him to have, you get to have Festivus every time you come in here.
Yes. This is why I enjoy coming in.
We all break balls.
And my wife's not going to listen.
Yeah, we talk a little trash. Nobody gets mad about it. No one takes it personally. We all throw shots. At the end of the day, I love Chris except for his hair. Donna, I don't know how you.
She's not in here.
No, good. She's gone? So I can talk about how I was going to walk around her house shirtless?
She might listen to this later. You never know.
I had it planned to walk around Chris's parents' house shirtless, flexing at his mom every opportunity I got. That was an idea for
Sidebar,
my 20s.
4-0 Panthers, 3 goals from defensemen.
Yes! Screw the Maple Leafs. This is the best time ever. I love all of this. Look, guys, I love you all for showing up on a night when the NFL schedule dropped. You're all here. We're here. We're all having a good time. But we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. Thank you for listening to the pre-OTA injury roundup. We'll come back and do this ahead of camp. We'll do it ahead of the season, and I'll just have you in because I like drinking beer with you, Kyle. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your work and where they can follow you on social media?
This is why I like coming on here. I get to drink beer, shoot the shit, and have fun. So you can find me on Twitter, X, Facebook, Reddit, Instagram at bangedupbills.com. You can find my work with Locked On Bills with Joe Marino. You can find my work at Bills Digest with Alex Brasky. Anywhere there's injury talk, I'm usually injecting myself in there, and I'm more willing to talk about it. Yeah, so if you have a question about injuries, I'm willing to find it. That's how great articles happen, great discussions, and the narrative gets discussed further. So Banged Up Bills, find me and talk with me, and I'm willing to talk with you.
I love Jeremy Rogers. How aren't y'all at 1,000 subs yet? I'll hand out Stella Artois to the people with phones outside of Goodwill. Just subscribe.
Because you guys keep burning this shit down every time.
Well, that's it. We get angry and we burn our follower count down on Twitter, and then everyone gets mad at us. But you're all here and you love us, and that's the real joy of this. So thank you and good night.